Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's vlog number 59, and for this one, it's New Year's Eve. We're getting to the Pearl to play some cards, and I love playing on this day because in general, people tend to get a little bit of liquid stupidity in the system, and then the ideas that they come up with are ones that they may not think of with a sober mind.
Today, we're teaching poodles how to fly. Come here, Foofy. Foofy. Are you psyched? Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Get ready and fly! Oh, man.
That tends to make it pretty profitable overall. So let's get to the tables. But before we do, let me remind you why this channel is called Cards and Capital. It's not just about poker. It's also about investing, doing something with the poker winning. So I'm taking other people's money, I'm investing it into the stock market, and I'm giving myself a means of trying to retire early so that I can invest and play cards full time. It's kind of a wild dream. It's going to take a lot of work, but so far we've made some progress. At one point, this account was up to almost 20K. The goal, at least my initial goal, is to get to 6 figures. And then the markets took a turn for the worse, so the account balance at the time of this session is right about this amount. The next stock I wanted to add was some more energy shares, and so I sent a poll out to you guys and said, which one should I buy next? You guys said buy some shares of Shell. Shell's $62 a share at the time of this filming, so I needed to make about 620 bucks in this episode. Let's see if we can do it and then give some money away. Let's go.
I'm never so packed for the stack, never lied on the rap, got a bag from the way that I write it. Queen looking Tyson, do that ass survive, doing 80 to the house, then I hit her to the sky, change haters on a tirade, talking to the crib in the face, be still, let that hit stuff fade.
There's something about the feeling of taking chips out of the rack and settling in for a night of cards that just puts me in a good mood.
$20 bomb, here we go. Sean, are you in for that?
No need to rush, we'll just take our time, wait for an interesting spot to show up. Oh, no need for patience. We're in the middle of it immediately. I have flopped 2 pair on a very connected board. Now it's a bomb pot, $20 bomb pot. So it's unlikely that I actually have the best hand right now, but it is possible. And I don't want to give up after only one bet. So when an opponent bets 125, there's a call. I'm going to toss in the call as well. I have a backdoor flush. I have 2 pair. I could make some boats. There's all kinds of potential, but I at least want to see one more card and see what happens. The turn adds another spade, so now I add a flush draw to my 2 pair combo. The opponent who made the initial bet now moves all in for $255. Player to my right makes the call. I just can't get away here. I've got 2 pair, I've got the flush draw. I'm going to see what happens, so I toss in the call as well. We've got a pretty good price to see if we can realize here. The spade comes in, and all these chips are coming my way. So as far as our progress goes on trying to get to our goal of $620 in profit, we're there, man. One hand in, and we've done it. Since we're starting this session out with a big win, I just want to take a moment and thank everybody who supports this channel through the Patreon. Really appreciate you guys. And as always, if I win, you're going to win. So there's some money potentially coming your way if we can hold on to this win. Let's see where it goes from here. We're off to a great and undeserved start to the session, and now finding a premium hand. I raised it $20, get 2 callers, and look at this beautiful board. I must have been oozing confidence and swagger as I continued for $30. Hoping one of these players would call, but they must have sensed something because both are going to fold. We pick up another small pot here. If, like me, you played the game NBA Jam as a kid, then you'll know that we need to win 3 pots in a row to hear those also very exciting words. He's on fire! Time for the heat check with hooks. I raised $20 and I get 1 caller. Flop is 6-6 queen. I check out of position. My opponent bets $30. I call and we're off to the turn for another 6. It checks through. River's a 7. I check. Having under-repped my hand, I'm planning to call a bet, but my opponent has a surprise coming in the form of a 3 times pot bet. So a quick aside here, whenever you see somebody bet 3 times the pot at a lower stakes game, I would say it's very, very rare that they are bluffing. It will happen. I'm not saying it won't happen, but it is extremely rare that it's going to happen. This was a weird hand, and so here's what I did. I wanted to get your feedback. I wanted to hear what you thought, and so what I did is I reached out to YouTube and said, YouTube, do you have any resources? Is there anybody that you can send me who could help me put together some voting buttons down below this video so that my audience can tell me whether I should have folded or whether I should have made the call? And YouTube said, Hey, we don't have any of our main developers available right now. We're busy with other things, but what we do have is an Italian intern named Vicente. So I contact Vicente, and Vicente says, no problem. I'll put together a submit button where they can vote and then submit their vote. Now, as it happens, Vicente put the submit button in Italian, so it says subscribe instead of submit. But just know that that's the Italian word for submit, and now you can submit your vote.
So comment below and hit submit.
Subscribe your vote below. Less than 2 hours into the session at this point, and only one hand really hasn't gone my way so far. It was the fold to the 3x pot bet. Now I'm in another good spot, holding ace-king preflop. I raised to 20, I get 2 callers, and we're off to play this one 3 ways. King 8-7 with a spade draw shows up. I bet 35 and I get a caller. We'll see the turn with only one other player. The turn is the ace of diamonds. Well, we improved our hand, but the story may not make as much sense if I was betting a king. Am I still going to be betting an ace? Only if I have ace-king. So I lead $85, hoping my opponent won't buy it, but unfortunately they do when they make the fold. I raise a suited ace on the button. Big blind 3-bets me to $50. I'm calling here. I'm in position, I've got the suited ace, and I know how tough it can be to play even when you have a good hand and you're out of position. To the flop, king of clubs, 3 of clubs, 7 of hearts. Opponent bets $70. I'm making the call here with the nut flush draw. I don't need to get too out of line yet. There's nothing that should be extremely scary for my opponent. Turn is another 3. Opponent now slows down and checks. Now it doesn't make much sense for my opponent to be slowing down on this card. The 3's actually good for him if he's holding a king or aces. I think those hands would bet again. So now it's time to put him to the test. I think he's holding probably some kind of an underpair, or he bet with some Broadway cards on the flop and now is slowing down hoping to make a pair. I bet $115, which is just enough to make someone uncomfortable with underpairs and unpaired cards, but we'll set up a nice river bluff for more if he makes this call. He does make the call, so I'm hoping the club shows up for an easy bet. If not, we're going to have to go ahead and bluff this thing, but instead we get an ace. So now I have real showdown value. The board likely means that I'm chopping with an ace given the action up to this point, or he has an underpair. I probably should have gone for a small value bet to see if I could get an opponent to shed a couple of tears, recite a short but heartfelt poem to their chips, and then call, knowing they'll never see them again. But in the moment, I didn't think that I would get enough calls to make it worth reopening the betting. It checks through, and we're chopping, but I'm not sure how my opponent found a call on the turn. All right, the following hand is for anyone who ever watched Phil Ivey's masterclass, where he talks about calling out of the big blind occasionally with cards that nobody else should have. So you go for these like really small baby suited cards. When you flop a big hand, great, you have a big hand. When you don't, it's easy to get away. At least that was the motivation in my mind when I got involved in this one. Well, here's the flop. It's not 4-4-3 like I was hoping, but it is Jack Deuce 5. Well, it's really not that good, but at least nobody should be super excited about this board. I check, which I'm going to do with my entire range here, and it checks to the button, who decides he's not going to bet. He checks as well. Turn is the jack of spades. I have all the draws now, and if I was holding something like Jack 8 suited on the flop, I would have checked it as I mentioned earlier. Therefore, we have a pretty solid spot to rep this. I push out a small bet to build a pot that I can attack later on the river. My opponents are likely calling here pretty light, which is what I would want holding a jack. The plan is coming together, especially when the river is the 6 of clubs. Yes! Made this straight. Oh, but that club has an extra club on it, meaning that we actually have a 7 of clubs, and our hand is
trash.
All right, so we don't actually have a hand, but that wouldn't change things if I held a jack or a boat. For all my opponent knows, I do have that hand. So I fire 60 into 75. Looks like a jack or a boat, which I could easily have from the big blind. My opponent goes, full tankaroni. Just lay it down, man. You don't want to risk that many chips just to expose me to the table as a complete jag, right? It'd be so much easier just to move on to the next hand and wait for a better spot, right? Fold your cards, man. Fold! Just fold! Quit thinking about it and fold! He tosses in the call. Dang it. Shout out to Nuge, who read me like a book and made the correct play with a hand that wasn't an easy call. Now I find the 6 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds. I'm playing what is effectively middle position because we're short a couple of players, and I raise it up to $20. I get 2 callers. Flop is 7-8-8 with a heart draw. It checks through. Turn is another 8, and this time the hijack bets $30 when it checks to him. Big blind makes the call, and I decide I'm going to make the call as well. I do have a boat. No, it's not the best, but I think I can at least make a call. There can be some hands that are kind of splashing around here. River is a king. Big blind checks. I'm going to check as well. This time the hijack bets $60. This is the same player bet $300 earlier in the night, and I'm just too curious. The big blind's gonna fold, and I can't get away. I gotta see what's going on. He bet $300 last time, $60 this time. Call me a sucker. I gotta see what's going on. Does he have a smaller boat than me with a pocket pair? I toss in the call and get bad news when he shows Queen 8-4 quads. Now the question is, did he have it last time? Something tells me that last time he was trying to get me off of a chop pot with a queen. I'm not entirely sure. Either way, he ends up scooping this one. $1,400 in my stack when I get ace of clubs, 8 of clubs in middle position and raise to $20. This is just slightly on the loose side, with ace-8 suited being an optional raise, but I like it in a game like this where people are a bit too wide pre-flop because it means that we're more likely to get paid by a flush that is lower than ours. Both of the blinds make the call, and we're off to see a flop that comes ace high with ace of spades, jack of spades, 7 of diamonds. I bet $35 when it checks over to me, seeking value from a worse pair or a flush draw. Small blind makes the call. Turn is the ace of hearts. I bet $90 now when it checks to me, expecting that I can get value from jack X combos, draws, and occasionally an unbelieving pocket pair. My opponent makes the call again. River is the 6 of diamonds. My opponent checks again. Without identifying too many combos that are going to want to call a bet, and a hand that I wouldn't fold if I raised here, I decided not to reopen the betting and checked behind. I think this is coming from my PLO play. Sometimes my PLO brain seems to get the best of me. Trips are like fine in PLO. They're pretty darn good in Hold'em, and I needed to make another bet here, and for whatever reason, because I couldn't identify too many value targets, and I think just that little bit of resistance inside of me from losing a bunch of money at PLO when I go too big with hands like this, I ended up checking. I don't think that was a good line. The play that I like the best here would be to bet really small and try to get raised by a worst hand that feels like they can steal, looking like I'm going for really small value, right? Like looking like I have a jack, and then my opponent thinks, oh, he has like a medium strength hand. I'm going to blow him off of this hand and steal this pot. Then just make the call and scoop all those chips. That's the play I should have made, and instead I made a much worse one. All right, this hand is for all of you who enjoy a little bit of aggression. There's an open to $15, a call in between, and then the action is on me sitting on the button. Good spot to raise it up and steal some chips pre-flop. I make it $60. Small blind now makes a weird fumbling raise to $105 and acted like he wanted to make it more. I say acted because I wasn't watching closely enough when he made the raise. I was focused on getting the camera and the footage, and it seemed just a little bit fishy when I was looking back up and trying to make sense of what had just happened. So it folds back around to me. My price here is so low. I have to pay $45 to win $245, and I'll be in position. I'm at least going to see a flop, and if it's a scary one that favors me or something like 10-10-4, then I'll have a good chance of dragging the pot. Flop is 7 of spades, 9 of spades, 10 of hearts. It's not exactly what I'm looking for, but it is one of the better scenarios where my opponent doesn't necessarily hit this flop super hard, but my calling range should hit it harder than his range. This could work out really nicely for me. Opponent bets $100. He has about $450 remaining. I could go for the raise here, but I could also see what my opponent does on the turn and then decide if I should commit my stack or not. He hasn't showed any weakness up to this point, so if he checks or if he makes a small bet on the turn, then I can decide to get aggressive. Turn is the 2 of spades. He bets $100, and this looks weak. This board can't feel good for an overpair, which is what I expect him to be holding most of the time. I go for the rest of his stack, expecting a fold fairly often. If we happen to get called, I should still be able to draw out, even if my outs are really minimal. All I don't want to see is a snap call. Opponent shows kings with the king of spades, and now we have to suck out on the river. No, this play didn't work out in this spot, but I actually think it's a really good spot to make the raise. My opponent is showing some weakness, kind of like he wants to get to showdown. Typically, when you see the same size bet 2 streets in a row, it means it's a weaker holding. Unfortunately, it wasn't weak enough that he was willing to let it go. Later, I get ace-king, and I 3-bet it, only to get called by a short stack and nobody else. If I win this pot, I will win tens of dollars. Here's the run.
All in, lit the fire when you doubt it, now I'm all in. Put me with the best, bring the stars in. Undefeated
Nice. All right. This was the same opponent we got it all in with earlier, and we're all in again. Let's see if this time we can send him home.
So why don't you send him home? His bags are packed. He's got his airplane tickets. Bring him to the airport. Send him home.
3. I've got an 8. I have a feeling a 9. I got the camera going late on this hand, but I 3-bet ace-king suited and get called by the button. Flop is all us. Going to be hard for my opponent to have much of anything that will want to call on this board. I decide to mix in the check out of position, figuring that I'm only going to get 2 streets of value from smaller hands like pocket tens that are more likely to call if I check the flop and bet the turn. Things get more interesting though when the turn is another king. Now I think I can get more value from hands that don't believe I have a king here and want to stab to try to take the pot down. I check again, and my opponent does bite, betting $80. It's a good time to pause briefly for effect and give my opponent a chance to think that I'm thinking about something. Whatever shall I do here? I'm in such a conundrum. I raised to $230 to make it look just bluffy enough that it is either what I'm holding or it's air. My opponent folds. That's okay. The line I took was to get value from worse, and he could have been extremely light making this bet here. If that's what it is, I got more value than if I had just let out on the flop. Before we get into this next hand, I just want to talk about body language for a second. So when I see body language at the table, I'm using it as like that last resort resource where typically, unless I feel like I'm really getting something, I'm going to play pretty much straightforward, and if I have a close decision, I'll lean towards the body language. I've been wrong about body language plenty of times and it's cost me money, so I try not to use it as a primary tool. I try to use it as a backup resource when I don't see anything super obvious. Now in this hand, I make a pretty huge deviation from what I would normally do. Let's talk about it. I have pocket threes. There's an open from middle position to $20. I make the call to set mine. Big blind throws in the call as well. Flop is a beautiful 3-10-6 with a flush draw. The hand gets interesting when the big blind now leads into the pre-flop raiser for full pot, and he's showing strong body language at the same time. Pre-flop raiser quickly folds and the action moves to me. I bump it to $145. My opponent looks comfortable and looks like he's considering a re-raise. He eventually tosses in the call. Now the turn is the 4 of diamonds. He leads quickly for $100 and is again looking comfortable. What the heck is happening? What hand wants to take this line and feels good about this spot? I'm starting to suspect that my opponent called with a pocket pair from the big blind, hit a set, wanted the pot to grow, so led into the pre-flop raiser, got raised, and decided instead of raising, I'm just going to go ahead and call, and then I'll lead on the turn and see if I can get raised again. So I decide I'm just going to call. Now this is a big deviation from what I would normally do. Normally in this spot, I'm going to want to put more chips in. I have a set, like, there's not a lot that we're losing to. The combos are pretty minimal, but his body language looks comfortable. He's leading into me after I've been aggressive, and it kind of feels like a trap. I end up making the call, and we go to the river, which is the 9 of spades. This shouldn't really change anything, and again, he bets for $100. Oh, it's so weird. What takes this? There's no bluffs. This isn't a bluff, so it's a value hand, but how good of a value hand is it? Am I being trapped where he's trying to induce the raise from me? This is what, if I was looking for a raise, this is what I would be doing. I'd be betting on the small side, hoping my opponent takes the bait and goes for it. So as much as this is like a big shift from what I probably felt in my gut I should be doing, I decided based on the body language, I think he feels good about his hand, and it feels like he's a-okay with this pot getting bigger and making the call. I actually didn't think I was going to be good very often here. I thought this was a set over set situation. I was going to get coolered. I end up throwing in the call, and he shows pocket queens. Basically, he was just trapping with the overpair and feeling good about it because the cards had all come really low. It was unlikely that he was behind, and so he was going for value from like 10x kind of holdings and draws, and I could have been raising him the entire time and getting all his chips. Now that said, at least the read of the body language was correct. It was a strong hand in his mind. He did feel good about where he was at. The unfortunate thing is that I didn't put the overpairs into his range based on the way he had played up to that point. I thought this would have been 3-bet, even from out of position pre-flop. So I'm expecting jacks, queens, kings, and aces all to be making a raise pre-flop. Therefore, those weren't really in my mind. I was expecting more pocket sixes, pocket tens. Unfortunate, we're still scooping a very nice pot, but this could have been for a big double up. And instead, it's a nice win, but not what it could have been. Into the game for 800, out for 1570. That means we booked a win of $770. We're getting 10 shares of Shell, plus I've got money to give away to the Patreon community, and we're going to be giving away a shirt from the shop. We're going to fire the digital t-shirt cannon now. Here's how we're going to do it. Leave a comment down below if you'd like to win a shirt, and tell me whatever you want about the episode, and then at the end of it, give me your favorite comedy movie followed by a t-shirt size. I'm going to choose a winner, and then I'm going to send out a t-shirt to you. Well, that's how you can win a shirt, but now let's give some money away on the Wheel of Cash. It's money for homies. All right, we have 2 winners, each getting $39. Let's spin the wheel twice. If you didn't know before, you know now. Whenever I win, I give money back to those who support this channel. So if you want to join the Patreon, the information's in the link below. Join and just give that $5 holler every month, and then you're entered for a chance to win whenever I win. Let's spin it twice. We got 2 winners of $39. Let's go. Spin number 1 goes to Drewbug. Drewbug! Congratulations, $39 coming your way. Let's spin it one more time. Winner of the second spin is It's Nonsense. Congratulations. It seems like a couple of you guys have been hitting a few in a row here. More money coming your way. Thanks for supporting the channel. Again, if you want to be a part of that, link in the description below. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Hope you have a great week. Talk to you next time.
Tyson. Do that ass survive, doing 80 to the house, then I hit her to the sky, change haters on a tirade, talking to the grip in the face, be still, let that